There's no such thing as danger. Danger is a myth. On the other hand, there's no such thing as safety. Danger doesn't exist because if nothing bad is going to happen to you, you're in the clear, whereas safety is an illusion because if something bad is going to happen to you, it's going to happen to you. Life isn't about safety or danger. It's about dealing with fate, and fate won't be dealt with. The Wilkins family lived across the street from us when I was a child. There was Ted Wilkins, his wife Annette, and their daughter Wendy. They were nice enough people, but they seemed to live their lives in fear. They had iron bars on their windows and a home security system that cost more than their car. Mrs. Wilkins was so afraid of kidnappers that she walked Wendy to school every day until the poor girl was in the 10th grade. They never had a Christmas tree for fear it would catch fire and burn the house down. On Halloween, Wendy was allowed to dress up, but not to trick or treat because her folks were sure she'd be poisoned by one of the neighbors. One Thanksgiving, they decided against having a turkey because Ted had read somewhere that turkey meat was vulnerable to salmonella, so they had a canned ham instead. Unfortunately, the meat had gone bad, and they all died of botulism. Then there was my Uncle Kurt's friend Roy, who worked with him at a construction site. Roy was a stickler about wearing his hard hat. From the moment he got into his truck each morning to the moment he arrived back home, he was wearing that steel helmet, and in all that time, nothing ever fell on his head. Then one night he was walking up to his front door with his hard hat under his arm when a loose brick from the chimney slid off the roof and fractured his skull. Roy was never right after that. Last I heard, he was in some kind of facility. Hoping to avoid the same fate, Uncle Kurt started wearing his hard hat everywhere. He wore it to work, to the grocery store, to the beach. One day he was on vacation fly fishing in a river outside Helena, Montana, when a massive bolt of lightning struck that steel helmet. On a positive note, Kurt had always said he'd want his ashes spread at sea, and this was something like that. One more example. Milo Pinter went to college with my father. A bright young man, Milo worked for a company that produced board games. He was the creative force behind Name That Odor, Humiliation, the family game, and shock therapy trivia, 9-volt battery not included. Milo worked for years developing It's Your Funeral. The object of that game was for each player to roll the dice and move their little plastic coffin around a board that resembled a cemetery without knocking over any cardboard tombstones or getting hit by a little plastic hearse. The first player into an open grave was the winner, provided that they had accumulated at least 3 salvation cards. If not, that player's coffin was placed in a yellow and orange section in the middle of the board, known as the Lake of Fire. One Friday morning, an executive from Chance and Wheeler, the largest board game company on the planet, called Milo's boss. They were interested in buying the rights to It's Your Funeral for an obscene amount of money. Everyone at the office took Milo out to lunch to celebrate his good fortune. They partied at the Plum Blossom, an elegant Chinese restaurant. Everyone was kissing Milo's ass, and he was on top of the world. At the end of the meal, the fortune cookies arrived. As each diner read their fortune, the same predictably vague advice was given. One fortune read, "Wisdom is golden." Another suggested, "You will soon find what you seek." Milo, laughing as he cracked open his cookie, was suddenly put on mute. There on the little slip of paper were 5 simple words. Give up. All is lost. Still haunted by that ominous message, Milo was unable to sleep that night. The next morning, Saturday, Milo decided to go for a drive to try to relax. Unfortunately, he was so drowsy, he dozed off behind the wheel and drifted off the road into a massive utility pole. He walked away just a little banged up, but the car was a wreck. As they towed it away, Milo realized his insurance had expired the day before. Give up. All is lost. That night, Milo had a date with his fiancée, Michelle. Unfortunately, he just walked to her house from the mechanics, where he had found out his car was totaled, still badly bruised, suffering from sleep deprivation, livid over losing his Lexus. Milo was a powder keg soaked in lighter fluid, and when he saw that his beloved had prepared a fancy Chinese dinner, the man left himself. He smashed the fine dishware and shrieked such unearthly profanity that Michelle, who was half a step from calling the police, broke off their engagement and threw him out, grabbed him and threw him out. As he limped home dazed and shaken, Milo managed to get bitten by a feral cat. Give up. All is lost. Milo stayed in his apartment all day Sunday, afraid to go outside. That night he got into a warm bath with a bottle of Polish vodka and stayed there. Finally he was able to sleep. The next day Milo was eventually stirred awake by the sound of the phone ringing in the bedroom, as it had been doing all day. When he finally picked it up, it was his boss informing him that the executives from Chance and Wheeler had come by the office that morning to sign the papers and waited around for hours, and then finally grew impatient and left, dumping the whole deal in the process. Before hanging up, Milo's furious employer told him not to bother coming back to work. Give up. All is lost. From there, it was a remarkably swift descent for Milo Pinter. Within months, he was wandering the streets, homeless and hopeless. One day, he found himself digging through a dumpster behind the plum blossom, and there, among the moldy noodles and soggy napkins, he found an unopened fortune cookie. He held the cookie in his hand for quite a while before opening it. The fortune consisted of 5 simple words: "Don't believe everything you read." Life isn't about safety or danger. It's about dealing with fate, and fate won't be dealt with.